You're listening to Cosmic Cousins Soul-Centered Astrology. I am your host, Jeff Hinshaw. Thanks for tuning in. Cosmic Cousins is dedicated to honoring the interconnectedness of our universal family through embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. And it is here to bring you back into alignment with the cosmos. So thank you for being here as always. Hey, Cosmic Cousins, welcome back to another week of the podcast. This is our special Taurus New Moon podcast episode, and it is finding us here on Friday, May 19th, 2023 at 8:53 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So this new moon is falling on Friday, Venus's day, which feels quite appropriate considering that this is the ruling planet for Taurus. This is the traditional ruler for Taurus. So we get to sink into a lot of these Taurian themes right now because not only is the sun and the moon in Taurus, which whenever it's a new moon means the sun and the moon are in the same sign, we also have a lot of other planets in Taurus right now. Jupiter just entered Taurus, initiating a new year of expansion around Taurian themes. So we'll get into that today. We're going to connect to this new moon, this Taurus new moon, through meditation, embodied health, self-discovery. And we also have not one, but two guests on the show today. I'm thinking about Juno, the asteroid of collaboration, is currently in Gemini, which is the twins. Two guests. Our first guest is Allison Strickland, who is a Taurus Sun with a Scorpio Moon, and they're an artist that is going to offer us some insight into this esoteric phrase for Taurus. And then the other guest that we have is a deep dive conversation with Niki Mueller, who just completed a level 1 mentorship with me. And Niki Sue is also a Taurus Sun with a Capricorn Moon. So we have these conversations to look forward to. And in that conversation, we talk about all the Taurus themes. And we also talk about the asteroid Hygeia. So you'll want to stick around for that if that is of interest to you. But before we hang out with our two guests today, I wanted to check in with you. If you're new here, welcome. We always have 3 phrases that connect us to the new and the full moon lunations. And the 3 phrases that we have for the Taurus new moon is I ground, I receive, I stabilize. I ground, I receive, I stabilize. You could pull a tarot card for each of these phrases. You could use them as a launching pad for conversation or for journaling. They could also be a mantra that you repeat to yourself. If you're ever interested in looking along with what I'm sharing, I would just like to remind you that I release a newsletter for each new and full moon. I only send newsletters out twice a month, so I won't bombard you with emails. But if you would like to be reminded of when the podcast is released, and if you just want to be able to read the transcript for these episodes, you could sign up for the newsletter. There's a link in the show notes. So yes, I ground, I receive, I stabilize. What does it feel like to breathe that into your body? What would it feel like if you gave yourself permission to fully embody these words? The image that I chose as the cover image for this episode and for in this newsletter is a picture I took last week when I went on a hike just out on the gorge. I live here in Oregon, and it's Multnomah Falls, which is a gorgeous waterfall. It's one of the biggest waterfalls that I've seen in Oregon, and it's a picture of a bridge. And I'm actually looking close right now. It's very lush around, a lot of green from all the water that we've had this past winter and spring. It's finally sunny here. The sun has come out this past week. But I'm seeing that there's one person on the bridge. I didn't notice this little detail before. And that person is looking towards me, like facing towards me, but looking off in the distance. And I feel like there's something particular around this one individual on a bridge, standing in front of a waterfall. So maybe you find yourself here in a little meditation. What would it be like to step into the garden of your heart? I often think of this for Taurus. Being a sign that's ruled by Venus, being an earth sign, being connected to the Empress in the tarot, the Hierophant, stepping into the garden of your heart. I think of the Buddha enlightened under a tree. These are some images that come to mind when I'm thinking about Taurus. So the Taurus new moon, yes, it's upon us. And this lunation invites us to slow down. Taurus invites us to connect with our bodies, to cultivate a sense of inner peace, to cultivate a sense of stability within ourselves and in our lives. And so even though we are coming to the end of Taurus season, or right here in the final few days, we are given an extra boost of Taurus encouragement this year because Jupiter just entered this fixed Earth sign. So Jupiter stays in a sign for roughly a year. It takes about 12 to 13 years to go around the sun. And we know Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system. So whenever Jupiter enters a sign, it does represent expansion and growth around those themes. So again, even though this new moon is taking place at the end of Taurus season, there is an extra boost of focus, of encouragement, of energetic support around these Taurian themes. So from now until May of 2024, we're supported when we focus our awareness, when we focus our third eye, which is connected to Taurus, the bullseye, when we focus our third eye on Taurian themes. So breathe into the body, breathe into the third eye. What if you begin to visualize your health, your physical health, and its vitality and strength? So take a moment to visualize yourself in good health. I am happy, I am healthy, I am holy. We can breathe this into the third eye and into the body. We're also supported in our relationship with the material, whether this is financial or connected to our body, to art, the connection to the natural world. So how might you like your relationship to the material world emerge over this next year that Jupiter's in Taurus? This new moon feels like this time where we are really being offered this time to cultivate to the soil of our heart and to plant seeds of intention for this next year. And so on this new moon, we're asked to reflect on our values. We're asked to reflect on our values and how they manifest in our lives. So yes, it's a powerful time. This is a really great lunation, new moon, to set intentions around artistic endeavors, the material, self-worth, and abundance. For me in my own life, I have been talking to you all about this, and I've shared a bit about this on my Instagram too, but I have created an Astro Oracle deck. It's a 78 card deck, Cosmic Cousins Astro Oracle, and I'm currently working on the guidebook. This new moon is a time for me to plant seeds of intention for bringing it into the material. Taurus is about materialization. So I have a projected release date for it, and for some of you, it might seem like it's way off in the distance, but it's about 9 months away from now. January 20th, 2024. Is that 9 months from now? So this new moon is May 19th, Friday, May 19th. June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. 8 months from now. We're going from fixed earth to fixed air. I casted the chart, Aquarius Sun with Pluto. It's Pluto's second ingress into Aquarius. And there's a lot of other alignments on that day that feel really right. And this is going to give me time to make sure that the guidebook is exactly what I want to say and that I'm printing the cards on the cardstock and have the right box and all of the good things. But yes, this is what I'm thinking about. I am tending to the soil in a very real way of what seed I want to plant. I want to bring something into the material in this next year while Jupiter's in Taurus. And so that is what I'm reflecting on. So again, for you, what are you wanting to bring into form? What is it that you want to cultivate within yourself to bring into material form? So setting intentions around artistic endeavors, the material, self-worth, and abundance. So perhaps sometime, it could be around this new moon and the weeks to follow. Really, in this whole year, we have Jupiter in Taurus, but this new moon is a ripe time. Perhaps take time to connect with your body, to ground yourself in the present moment, and to visualize the life that you want to create, or to visualize the art that you want to create. Some Taurus questions for reflection. What do you truly value? What brings you a sense of security, stability, and belonging? How might you cultivate a deeper sense of worth within yourself? Taurus is connected to the neck and to the throat. It's also connected to the mouth. This includes the lips and the tongue, and it's connected to the thyroid gland. So perhaps you bring awareness to your neck and your throat. We also said the third eye. And I'm going to read you these questions for reflection again and breathe them into your body. Notice how your body reacts to these questions. What is it that you truly value? And can you breathe that into your body? What brings you a sense of security, stability, and belonging? Can you breathe that into the body? How might you cultivate a deeper sense of worth within yourself? The Taurus affirmation I have for us was inspired by my friend and teacher, Taurus Adriana Rizzolo. I'm taking her body temple training right now. It's a 9-month training. And the Taurus affirmation that she shared with us as a group that we chanted together is, we are worthy of a love that heals. We are worthy of a love that heals. Breathing that into the neck, the throat, and the third eye. So yes, this Taurus new moon, it is found at 28 degrees and 25 minutes of Taurus. So you can look to this part of your chart to understand where in your life you might be feeling some of these themes. And so there's something very particular about this degree of Taurus. A little birdie shared with me this week that this is right where the Pleiades Star Cluster is found. The Pleiades Star Cluster is found at about 29 degrees of Taurus. I haven't worked with this Pleiades star point too much in my own practice, but I do know it is often thought of as a source of intergalactic wisdom, which is kind of cool to think about. 29 degrees of Taurus. So this new moon is right here at this source of intergalactic wisdom. I think it's kind of cool too because Queen of Taurus, cosmic cousins Queen of Taurus, Cher, is a Taurus sun at 29 degrees, which in some ways is making me think of her otherworldly fashion. It's taking on a new meaning that perhaps she is an ambassador of cosmic Earth. And so Cosmic Earth is the title of this episode because of this Pleiades star cluster point, and also because my conversation with Niki Sue in a bit has a very cosmic Earth feel. And I'm also thinking about my friend Jolie, who is a Taurus, and pulled the cosmic Earth card from the Astro Oracle deck when I was on retreat a month or so ago. So I would be curious to learn if you have anything around the 29 degrees of Taurus, and if you sense a certain cosmic influence in this part of your chart. For me, this is my Amum Cheli, which is the IC, the fourth house, the place of home, ancestry, and family. I actually, when I was a kid, I used to think I was abducted by aliens. I had a dream where I was abducted by an alien, and I wouldn't sit with my back towards a window at night because I thought they would come back and get me. But it's interesting for me to think of the fourth house of home and family being just a few degrees from this Pleiades Star Cluster, this source of intergalactic wisdom, because hello, cosmic cousins, you all are my cosmic cousins. You're my family. And that was part of my intention of putting this podcast out in the world with this name, Cosmic Cousins, because I didn't grow up with any cousins. I come from a very small family. And actually, no one in my family believes in astrology or wants to even talk about astrology. So you all are my astro fam, my cosmic cousins. Taurus A, with the Pleiades Star Cluster. It's kind of fun to think about. I've never thought about it before until this new moon, which makes sense. The new moon will bring the sun and the moon together at a point in our chart and will open up some sort of portal or vortex into deeper understanding. And so this idea, this concept of cosmic Earth, it's also making me think of my dog. My dog is a part of my family, Biji. Traveled all the way from Cambodia and found his way into my heart and into my home. And he is a Taurus moon, conjunct Uranus. What degree? I'm going to actually look up Biji's degree right now to see if it's hanging out with this cosmic point. Yeah, he has a later degree Taurus moon. So Biji is an intergalactic dog. He is a sentient being and is a member of my family. So this past week, I wanted to share with you this little story, and then we'll get into our collaborations. But this past week, we had a heat wave in Portland, and I didn't have air conditioning yet. If you've been listening to the show, you might know that I just relocated a few months ago to a new home, and I'm now in this historic building. So there's no AC, no air conditioning in this building. And so I was away for just 2 hours to go get myself a Taurus season massage, and I kept a window cracked. I kept a few windows cracked. I was mindful of how much I opened them, and the ones that I opened, I wanted to make sure that, Biji wouldn't get out. Anyway, after I got out of the massage, I got a text that Biji had escaped out the window. And I went from being completely relaxed to being in a state of panic, and I drove home. It was only a 15-minute drive home. And I get back home, and Biji is still on the roof. He's hanging out like a little sun-gazing gargoyle. He was up there for 2 hours on the roof. So I included a picture of that in the newsletter. It was terrifying at the time, but he is actually totally okay. And so now I'm finding the humor in it, and he's quite the legend. So we now have air conditioning, and that won't be happening again. But there's something very Uranian. He's got Moon and Taurus conjunct Uranus about this whole situation, and this was around the Uranus Cazimi last week. Anyways, this cosmic degree is being activated on this new moon in tandem with Mercury, Jupiter, Uranus, and the North Node of Fate are all in Taurus, and these kind of add to it. So Mercury, intellect and communication. Jupiter, wisdom and beliefs. Uranus, radical insights. The North Node of Fate, evolution. And we also have Vesta, the devotional priestess, all in the sign of Taurus. And so all of this seems to hold a lot of cosmic potential and expansion in the most grounded of ways. So what is cosmic Earth? Breathe these invitations into the body under this influence of the Taurus new moon. Cosmic Earth reminds us of the importance of being anchored and connected to the earth, while still remaining open to the otherworldly energies that surround us. Cosmic Earth encourages us to find a balance between the physical and the spiritual aspects of our lives. Cosmic Earth reminds us to take practical steps towards our goals and to stay focused on our responsibilities and duties, while at the same time opening ourselves up to radical insight to bring greater healing to our lives and to others. It's actually very star card vibes in the tarot. So you might want to add that out on your altar too. But with all this cosmic energy in Taurus, this new moon is communicating to us the importance of finding beauty in the simple things in life, while at the same time embracing a very expansive outlook. So your relationship to your body is your relationship to the earth, is your relationship to the cosmos. As the saying goes, as above, so below, as within, so without. So how might you take a step back from the chaos of the world and find peace in this present moment? How might you take a step back from the chaos of the world and find peace in this present moment? Okay, so our first special guest is Allison Strickland. Allison is a Taurus Sun with a Scorpio Moon and a Libra rising, and they are an artist exploring the bridge between spiritual receptivity and material making, and how they are in constant, inseparable play. Her meditative abstract paintings are informed by contemplative practices, color psychology, other ways of knowing, emotion, and the beginner's mind. I gifted myself one of Allison's creations from a collection of works that they put out. And each piece is made up of 300 dashes. And there's a link in the show notes if you want to check out their website so you can see the visual, or in the newsletter. But each piece is made up of 300 dashes. And it's similar to other meditative objects like mala beads or rosaries. And each dash represents a mantra. Each dash represents a blessing or an affirmation repeated to infuse the piece with intention. And so in some systems of numerology, 300 is considered to be a number of transformation and creativity. And so I was very struck by just the color blocking and the intentional meditative process of Allison Strickland's work. And I found it to be quite Taurian. The piece that I gifted myself is, it's like this, it shifts from this green turquoise down to this kind of darker blue. And then the 300 dashes are in this gold color. And each time that Allison painted one of these gold strokes, she infused the mantra, this is specific to my piece, which is, I speak my truth with ease, repeated with each dash. So this is a blessing, this is a prayer, this is a ritual. And I find Allison's creations to be so incredibly Taurian, and I thought maybe it would resonate with many of you who are into cosmic cousins and into astrology. I find her creations to be Taurian because there's something so bold in the declaration of a mantra. There's something so bold in the focus of an affirmation infused with intention. It makes me think of the bullseye or the third eye. There's this cultivation of a deeper sense of beauty and awe through this focus, fixed earth. And so on this week's podcast episode, I asked Allison to explore the esoteric phrase for Taurus with us through the lens of their craft. And so I'll remind you what that phrase is now. It's, I see, and when the eye is opened, all is illumined. Sometimes people will also say illuminated, which I think is also great too. So let's listen to Allison's thoughts on this now.
Hello, I'm Allison Strickland. I'm an artist. My primary medium is painting, and through that, I explore where spirit and matter meet. I create intention-based meditation paintings that serve as sacred objects for transformation through contemplation, intuition, both mine and the viewers, and beauty. I'm also a Taurus, May 13th baby, and I am bringing you the Taurus esoteric phrase, which is, I see, and when the eye is open, all is illuminated. And I really love this phrase. I'm clearly biased, but Jeff was the first person to share this phrase with me. I'd never heard it before, so contemplating this felt just really exciting and fresh, because most of the things I think are generally out there about Taurus are, number 1, stubborn, 2, we're lazy, 3, we love food, and All of those things are completely true, and there is just so much added depth here in this esoteric phrase. It feels to me like a little peek behind the material veil. So in this contemplation of sight and the bull's eye, the two mundane eyes, as it were, and then this third eye, it got me thinking about our other senses and their functionality. For instance, when I think about the mouth, it's really this outward expression. It's energetically active. It's forward moving. With our ears, we listen. Of course, it's a process where we experience sound coming in and around and toward us, which is passive. And I realized getting back up to the eyes was interesting because they're really both active and passive. Seeing takes on this sort of dual nature, dual motion through this esoteric Taurus lens. Speaking of sound, I am in New York, so you are likely to hear lots of happenings in the background. So again, we have our two mundane eyes through which we look, we seek, we search, and all of those feel outward and present to the world around us, present to the material plane. And then we have this third eye sight, and it's really about receptivity and receiving an image. I experience it as images dropping in versus needing to go out to find them, to go meet images. And I've also noticed as I try to gain deeper understanding of my own intuitive language and process that for me, leaning too far forward or grasping for it can actually cause anxiety or greater uncertainty than I started off with. And that's where it helps me to remember what Taurus does best, and that is to lean back and relax. So through our third eye intuition, which I do believe all of us have access to in some capacity. Ages ago, I watched this documentary on A&E or some channel like that, and there was a psychic who I do not remember her name, but I've always really loved her theory on intuitive ability, and that was essentially that we all have access to it. It's like playing the piano. Some of us play chopsticks, and some of us play Chopin, and I love that and really believe it to be true. So again, I believe we all receive messages and wisdom from our spiritual eye. And of course, there's many ways to experience intuition, but through the Taurus lens, sight. A little deeper into this exploration, the archetypal image that came to my mind was that of the oracle. And oftentimes the oracle is actually depicted as Venusian in nature. The hero goes to the temple, or like in the Matrix, Neo goes to the elder's kitchen, and we find this person sitting. Sometimes they're even depicted as blind in the ordinary sense, and we go to them and they seem to open up and receive messages and then share them with us. And this applies to not only my art practice, but I think all creative pursuits. And of course, there's lots of creative ways to make art as well, but I find that the way that's most fulfilling to me is founded on this relationship between me and spirit, or me, spirit, and the person I'm creating a meditation painting for and with. And it's really about opening up a space together for visioning something that I believe already exists, and we're just pulling it down into the material plane, working with pictures I get and messages, and also pictures and messages you receive. And in continuing to work with my work, or really any art you want to engage with in this way, I think that we can kind of look at these objects as portals and open up third eye sight and continue to engage and receive messages as time goes on, and we form deeper relationships with these pieces and any object around us, really. So I think Taurus really teaches us here that through the three eyes, we can be fully present in the material world while also remaining aware of the spiritual realm, and that it's really just a balancing act or a dance, an invitation on how to have a healthy relationship with the material world. And perhaps the most elevated Taurian energy is an understanding of the ways magic or the sacred is often birthed through the mundane and not in spite of it. So I'd love to close with a quote I found by artist Georgia O'Keeffe, who's a super Scorpio, and that is, of course, Taurus's sister sign. So she has some lovely insight on seeing, and she always says, "To see takes time, like to have a friend takes time." And I felt that's a great way to end, because I think as we open up to our intuition and explore that side of ourselves, as I mentioned before, a lot of times it can get taken over by this kind of anxious seeking, looking for signs, looking for what is out there for me. And I think the more we practice listening to our intuition, receiving our intuition, and having patience with it, we realize that it is actually a receptive act. And in order to receive the messages, it's less about leaning forward and more about sitting back and letting these images come to us. So I hope you have a happy Taurus new moon, and I'm wishing you open eyes and lots of illumination.
To see takes time, like to have a friend takes time. I love that quote that Allison included from Georgia O'Keeffe, who is our Queen of Scorpio. Cher, Queen of Taurus, Georgia O'Keeffe, Queen of Scorpio. It's interesting, this polarity and how they will look at each other on opposite sides of the wheel and offer us some insight into these archetypes. I'm not even sure if Allison knew that Georgia O'Keeffe was our cosmic cousin's Queen of Scorpio, but it felt very intuitive and very cool to hear that quote. Thank you so much, Allison. I have listened to that recording that you sent in a few times, and it has unlocked a reservoir of deeper insight, and it has illuminated so much for me. It's also making me think of, there is a particular depiction of the High Priestess that feels like the oracle to me that you're speaking to. That is in the I Light Tarot deck, which is interesting. It's E-Y-E, the I Light Tarot, and the High Priestess in that deck has very much a connection to a lot of what you just shared. So at this time, before we transition into our conversation with Niki Sue Mueller, I would like to just remind you that I am a astrologer and tarot reader and a mentor, and I do have openings for readings for this June and also for this July. So if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, if you're looking for some sort of container for your transformation, for your journey at this time, it would be an honor to connect with you in this way. And I do have a couple spots open for one-on-one mentorships, which I'd also be honored to hold space for you in that way too. The mentorships are deep dives. We gather for 6 months, and this is for those looking for extra support on their healing journey, or those who are looking to become astrologers or to fine-tune their craft, to strengthen their intuitive muscles. So if you're interested in that, I have links to those in the show notes. I'm wishing for you an easeful Taurus new moon. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Niki Sue. Before we do that, I do like to also read comments. So if you listen to this show and you value it, you could become a Patreon supporter of the show at patreon.com/cosmiccousins. You could also leave a 5-star review, some comments, and some love. And Spotify has also started allowing for reviews. And I've noticed that Spotify is allowing for comments and things like that as well. So maybe I'll read some of the reviews that have been written recently about the podcast. This comment has come in from Caitlin Jane 17. Grateful for this pod, 5 stars. Cosmic Cousins has quickly become a ritual for me to listen to these podcasts the day they come out. As someone who loves astrology and the spiritual, but doesn't have a lot of extra time to devote to researching them at the moment, I feel like Jeff gives me the deep dive I need on the astrology for each month. I love tuning in while doing chores or running errands, and every time I do, it makes me feel like there's a little sparkle of magic within my mundane. I always come away learning something and with a truer smile on my face than I had before. I'm so grateful I found this grounding, warm, and dreamy podcast. Thank you, Jeff, for all you do. Thank you, Caitlin Jane, for writing in. Your comment, your review make me smile. And I do the same thing. I listen to podcasts when I'm cleaning. I always connect it to my Virgo moon. And this podcast is a Virgo sun. Was born September 20th, 2017. That's what was the first episode release date. So this Cosmic Cousins podcast is a Virgo Sun with a Libra Moon and a Sagittarius rising. So yes, if you would like to leave a comment, review, 5 stars, if you leave a review, I'll likely read it at some point on this podcast. At this time, let's transition into our conversation with Niki Sue Mueller. This is a friend and a student of mine. Niki Sue completed the Brooklyn Fools Tarot Journey back in 2021, as well as a 6-month level 1 mentorship with me. Niki Sue is a Taurus Sun with Capricorn Moon and Gemini rising, and is a yoga teacher, an astrologer, a tarot reader, a spiritual guide, an athlete, a mom, and a beloved friend. She was recently named Best Yoga Teacher and Best of Jackson Hole, which she has now won many years in a row. And so, without further ado, let's transition into this convo now. Yay! It's Niki Sue Mueller. This has been a long time coming that you were going to be on the podcast. So I'm excited to introduce the Cosmic Cousins to you today. And let's get into it. I'm going to read a little bit of your bio. That way we can introduce everyone to you. So this is from your website, nikisuyoga.com. And just allow yourself to receive it, because I know sometimes hearing our own bio read back to us, it's like, oh, wow, did I write that? That's how I always am with it anyway. But I learned some new things about you actually reading it. So, but we know each other pretty well. So Niki Sue completed the Brooklyn Fools Tarot Journey back in 2021. Yeah. And you just completed a 6-month astrology mentorship. So this is kind of like our, not close out to the mentorship, but it just feels like a celebration of all that we've learned together over the last 6+ months. So here's a little bit about Niki Sue. Niki Sue Mueller is known for her down-to-earth approach to profound cosmic awakenings. Spiritual guide, yoga teacher, astrologer, athlete, mom, beloved friend. Niki Sue Mueller has always been on a quest to feel life's deepest truths through embodied health and contemplative practice. At a very early age, Niki Sue felt compelled to be of service to others and to the community. As an adult, Niki Sue worked in social services as a leader for public health programs, including youth at risk, substance abuse, health, and wellness. Developing an award-winning national program for substance abuse prevention, Niki Sue was able to incorporate her training in psychology and sociology into prevention on a national scale. Practicing and teaching yoga for over 2 decades, Niki Sue has thousands of hours of foundational studies and holds an RYT, Registered Yoga Teacher, 500 certificate. She has led and participated in countless teacher trainings and currently leads Inversion Yoga's yoga teaching program in Jackson, Wyoming. I also want to shout out that you have won Best Yoga Teacher and Best of Jackson Hole for many years in a row, and you just won it again this year. And we were connecting that to maybe your Lilith return in Leo, which we might get into some today. And then this last paragraph, we shift gears towards your work with astrology and tarot. Intuition has always been Niki Sue's guiding force, leading her to delve deeper into the cosmos and eventually becoming an astrologer and tarot card reader. As a constant seeker of truth, Niki Sue finally found her true calling, where she could integrate yogic philosophy, divination, and astrology together, weaving a matrix of interconnected worlds to guide and help her clients in their soul's journey. Niki Sue likes to create sacred spaces by using classical and emergent healing practices with a sense of humor to provide the container for practical and inspired soul growth. Welcome to Cosmic Cousins.
Thank you.
What did that feel like to receive your introduction, your bio? It was a beautiful bio. Oh my goddess.
Thank you so much. First of all, it's such an honor to be asked to be a part of your incredible podcast. So I want to just thank you for that. To hear,
it feels like you're part of the podcast already, because I feel like, you're always texting me about things that happen on the show, or, you've been listening for a while. So, I mean, that was my intention with Cosmic Cousins, is that it's about the collective that's tuning in. And so you're part of that. So it's wild that this is the first time that you're on the show.
well, my 12th house sun who shies away from these kind of things. So it's actually very good for me. And I think it speaks to the Lilith return that you mentioned earlier.
But Jupiter is now in Taurus. So you get this opportunity to be seen in a whole new way. Jupiter is approaching towards your sun. So I think even just like hearing your bio read back to you is maybe part of Jupiter coming towards your sun right now. You're going through some sort of expansion at this time. Yeah.
Hearing the bio read back, it was interesting. I almost was like, wow, okay, I have done something in life. I have a strong connection to Saturn. So it's near my sun as well. So I can be a little bit hard on myself and not able to see the light as much. That felt really sort of validating and good to hear it. I almost felt like I was listening to something new, even though I know that I wrote it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's rewind a little bit. So you said Saturn's close to your sun. So why don't we connect to your big three? Not only is Saturn 6 degrees from your Taurus sun, you also have a Capricorn moon. And then you're a Gemini rising. So Taurus sun, Capricorn moon, Gemini rising. There's a thing that we do on the podcast sometimes. I call it Inner Dorothy, find your inner Dorothy. And I had sent this to you last week, just as maybe a little meditation to just connect in. But Find Your Inner Dorothy was inspired by Judy Garland. And when I looked at her big three, I realized that it told the story of Dorothy. And so then I created this little Mad Libs, like fill in the blank for everyone's sun, moon, rising. So the sun sign is your character. So you are the sensual bull, Taurus sun. Capricorn moon in a wise council meeting, delivering messages from divine, Gemini rising. What does that bring up for you when you hear that little inner Dorothy? And how do you work with and navigate being a Taurus sun, Capricorn moon, Gemini rising?
You almost just gave me a summary of my 12th house. So in that, since the Capricorn moon is related to Saturn, it just feels like everything, it feels a little bit like the magician of bringing the divine to earth, but living in that sort of spiritual realm a lot of the time, but then having the tethering or rooting into the earth through the connection of the earth signs. It kind of gives me those kind of feels.
Yeah. So you have, well, it's interesting you say the magician, because then you also have Mercury, which is actually connected to the magician in Taurus. So you have Sun, Saturn, Mercury, and Venus all in this lovely fixed earth sign in the 12th house, with then Mars and Gemini hanging out there too. So I like that your sun, moon, rising in many ways is connecting you to this stellium that you're feeling in the 12th house. And what I'm hearing from you is, the sun in Taurus is there, the sensual bull, and a wise council meeting, Capricorn moon, but there's all this planetary energy hanging out in your 12th house, which feels like a wise council meeting in of itself, especially with Saturn being there. And then delivering messages from divine. You have Mercury in the 12th house and you're a Gemini rising. So yes, this is the big three. It's nice to check in with that so people can kind of get an idea for your astro energy as we begin to discuss some of these Taurian themes. And so we were just saying Jupiter just entered Taurus, and that's like a main signature for this Taurus new moon. Jupiter entered Taurus just a few days before the new moon. And so this initiates a year time period of focus on Taurus. And you were saying before we pressed record that it's like we get a whole year of Taurus season vibes. And you were just sharing that, I think it was one of your children, I don't remember which one, I think your son placed a bowl out on your altar. Or maybe, are you in his room right now?
Yeah, this is where I do my readings. This is where I feel the cleanest energy, and there's just something very page-like of being in here, so it feels really fresh.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're even just using tarot as a way to describe that. Something page-like. I know what that means, but maybe you could share a little bit more about what that means to you.
Well, the pages in the tarot feel like they bring a very youthful, fresh, more emptier sponge type of vibe. And so if I'm doing my readings in here or doing spiritual work in here, it just feels really fresh, and it's not permeated by conditioned existence, by all of the experiences other than this moment.
Why would we think that this might be important when channeling or working with practices like astrology or tarot? That page-like quality.
I think we need to be open to the downloads we're getting in a really sort of liberated way from any kind of connection we would make to another experience. So I'm a yoga teacher, and the yogic state is a very clean state of just not identifying with whatever's coming up, so that you can see things just as it is in the present moment without having an overlay or a filter from any past experience. So I think that if I can go into my readings with that knowledge, then it helps me to be super free and not have any experience of any other reading when I'm looking at someone else's chart or through the cards or whatever kind of avenue I'm using.
I want to add to that a little bit too. That you're awakening for me in this moment is the playfulness of the pages and the curiosity of the pages. I think I bring to my practice as an astrologer and as a tarot reader. Like we do deep work, and there's a sense of playfulness and magic to it too.
Yeah, and I heard you say that in my bio, actually, that the humor piece, and when I really reflect on it, I definitely feel, and this does speak to my big three, but I do feel that connection to the humor and to use it to tapping into that and being able to play both sides. And I also feel like we're speaking about Taurus, and Taurus definitely feels more youthful.
Interesting. So would you equate Taurus to the Page of Pentacles, perhaps?
Yeah. It took me a second because I'm thinking of the esoteric phrase for Taurus.
Yeah. You said you're newer to the esoteric phrases, and I had shared the Taurus phrase with you and wanted to just check in with you to see what it brings up for you. But yeah, I see, and when the eye is opened,
right.
all is illumined. So the image I'm getting, that I shared with you is like the enlightened Buddha under a tree, which is a Taurian image. And I like that we're bringing playfulness and a sense of humor in, because I also think of like the laughing Buddha as being very Taurus too, but also maybe the weeping Buddha. I think that Taurus is also deeply sensitive, and maybe we don't always talk about this side, particularly the Taurus that has begun to evolve through their polar sign of Scorpio. Tauruses can be so attached to the earthly realm that when they lose someone or something, it can be a deep process of letting go. I actually know quite a few Tauruses. I'm in this grief group right now. It's online. It's like a collective, like 100 people, but it's led by Mirabai Star and Willow Brook. And they didn't talk about astrology, but they both had birthdays during Taurus season. I was like, this is so interesting. 2 Tauruses leading a grief group online. And then I think of my friend Adriana Rizzolo, who's a Taurus, and she also holds space for grief gatherings. So I'm curious about this polarity to Scorpio. And I think the esoteric phrases tend to reveal a message about how the sign might evolve through the polar sign and come back into themselves. I'm weaving in Scorpio and curious about what your relationship is to the esoteric phrase. I see, and when the eye is opened, all is illumined.
Oh, there's so much there, but the Buddha is a really good contemplation on this phrase for me. I think of the Buddha as the awakened one. And so I connect that with the awakened mind when I'm teaching this in yoga or studying it in yoga. I feel these two things are very connected. The Buddha and the awakened mind is actually known as the Buddhi. And so the awakened mind, the eye of the intuition, this is also related to chakra phenomenon, where the Ajna chakra is the third eye, and this is the eye of the intuition. So the intuition is also related to the senses. So it feels the awakened mind in my own practice of bridging yoga, of bridging all of these different sort of practices together, kind of feels like bridging body, mind, and spirit. And I really feel into that. I feel like it's also the command center. It's known as the command center, the Ajna chakra, the third eye, and it's known as the perception center, the eye of the intellect. And so through the senses in this Taurian way, or through the medium of the body is another way, if we're thinking about physical yoga practice, I can really feel into the intuitive center, connecting the body and the mind together.
Yeah. And I mean, this is something that's so interesting about Taurus to me. And particularly, I think of you as a Taurus, your birthday, April 26th, I have like 4 Tauruses in my life with that birthday. And all of you are super freaking cosmic. I would call it cosmic Earth because all of you are very connected to your body. I mean, you go skiing, you go hiking, you teach yoga. You just completed a teacher training this past weekend. Just like hours, you said you like 10-hour days of you like just being physical, yet you're so cosmic. And I think all the signs are cosmic, but Taurus, there's something about Taurus. Maybe is it Uranus transiting through Taurus right now? What's going on? Has Uranus been connected to your journey with astrology? So Uranus entered Taurus about in 2018.
Yes, highly connected, I would say. In 2018, right before when Uranus was at the last degrees of Aries, I was driving down the highway to go teach my yoga class, and 2 trumpeter swans. I don't, have you ever seen a trumpeter swan? There's many here where I live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and they're so gorgeous. These beautiful white birds. You usually see them around the ponds in Jackson or near Jackson, but there were 2 that must have been flying over the highway, and they crashed, and one fell out of the sky and crashed onto the highway, like right in front of my car.
Dang.
And it was like I was rushing to class like I'm normally. I pulled over and I called 911 so that they could get Fish and Wildlife to come and help the bird. It just was this really interesting moment. And I mean, my heart was breaking, of course. And there were 2 of them, which kind of feels into like relationship, Taurus. And then about, I would say like a month later, or a little bit long, 6 weeks later, I ended up meeting my astrology teacher she was a therapist for me, but she ended up becoming my teacher of astrology and all things esoteric. And she just like totally opened, talk about like illumined eye, just really opened so many channels for me. And it was really connected to the swan energy. We had some swan synchronistic experiences that were kind of mind-blowing and really open. prior to that, I had been interested in astrology, but I never, for a long time, since I was in college, but I never dove deep into it. And I really took a deep dive. It's almost like the swan taking a deep dive. Yeah. And then I took this major deep dive, and that was right when Uranus had entered Taurus.
Wow. This connection to even animals, I connect to Tauruses a lot too. You know, Taurus being a sign that in many ways we could say is connected to just nature, being in nature. I mean, that's the spark notes for Taurus is like connect with your body, connect with nature. And you're saying body, mind, spirit, particularly when we're meditating on this esoteric phrase. So it's about building a bridge between the relationship to the body, the relationship to nature, and that which it holds to the mind, the third eye, the intellect, the intuition, and spirit. And when we add in that fixed earth quality of Taurus, I mean, this is super freaking like bold in its understanding of how we are spiritual beings on this earthly plane, and understanding the deeper symbolism and interconnectedness that we hold to the natural world around us. And that's something like you're always bringing up nature images, like seeing animals, spotting animals. And what is this bringing up for you as a Taurus? Because this is so different. You know, we talk about Taurus in a certain way, and some Tauruses might not relate to this, particularly those who are maybe, you know, earlier on in their journey might feel like, I don't know about that, because Taurus is also freaking stubborn. I'm thinking about some Tauruses I know, like, will not even listen to anything about astrology. Sometimes it can be like the thickest individuals to get through to, but then once you get it, or once you understand the value in it, it's like becoming a master at something. I think of the Hierophant and the tarot.
That's what I was thinking when you were saying that. I was just thinking of like being stuck in the mud and not wanting to move from where you are. And that stubbornness of just like, no, this is what I know. This is what I've learned. I'm not willing to change. So when Uranus entered Taurus, it kind of liberated me from things that I thought I had to follow, or ways that I needed to do things, instead empowering me to find a new way, something new and expansive. So I'm feeling into that from that transit, but also, yeah. And it's interesting you say that, because when I think of the Hierophant, I think of the Hierophant as fixed. It's like sometimes we have certain teachers, or we give our power to someone else because that's what's been handed down to us, whether it's parental, ancestral, educational. And then when we can liberate from that, and in the true medicine of the Hierophant, and be able to follow our own values and beliefs, to be able to do that is really powerful, and actually bringing the authority back into our own sphere instead of assigning it to someone else. It's making me think of that. And the animal connection, you know, that to me, like maybe 10 years ago, I wouldn't have seen that swan experience as something profound or made this connection at all, because it's like, no, that, you know, that doesn't make sense. But I think over the past couple years, few years or more than that, I've definitely been much more open to seeing the magic in all the animals. And like, it's not just by chance that I was there in that exact moment to see that, nor the other animal kind of experiences I have. And then as a Taurus, my senses like go wild at the sound of the like the sandhill cranes. Yeah. That I saw the other day, and I heard their sound, and it's just like, you could just, that feeling of hearing that, like that just stimulates all of my senses. And it's really magical. And I always felt actually the magic of seeing animals and the magic of nature. And it's always been my healing place to be in nature. Yeah. And it's actually why I moved out to Colorado for college,
Mm-hmm.
It brought me there, nature. And I just needed to be in nature. And so I think that it all comes together for me in my experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were born in New York, then I'm hearing you say that you moved to Colorado, and now you're in Wyoming. Could you maybe paint a picture for us or describe what it looks like where you live? You send me pictures sometimes, and I just immerse us in what it just looks like and feels like where you are.
Someone described this to me once. It was my teacher, and she said that Jackson is like one of the most powerful vortexes on Earth, though not written in books. It's very well known amongst light workers and healers. And there actually is specific spots here that are attuned to that and known for that. So it's almost, it's making me feel of my 12th house. It's obvious when you come here. If you've seen the Tetons, you know how powerful they are. I've lived here for 30 years, and every single time I look at the Tetons, I'm in awe of its beauty. They're just these huge, powerful mountains. And there's a glacier. There's always some bit of snow, even in the hottest of a summer day. Very extreme kind of things happen here, whether it's sports, weather. It's just a super powerful place. And there happens to be an incredible community. I'm talking about all the outward beauty, but the inward beauty that I feel here is what I think is what roots me here. So it's not unusual to drive 10 minutes to see your friend and see a moose on the side of the road with its baby. You're lucky to see a bear, but not extremely unusual. It feels like messages constantly. You'll see like a bald eagle just right at the right moment. It's just such a powerfully sensual place.
I like that you said sensual. The word that I thought you were going to say was like illuminating, which both of these words are Taurian. And I think building a bridge between the sensuality and the illumination is part of this journey, Taurus. And it does make me think of yoga, actually. And that's like that's a big connection that we have. And I don't necessarily always share this on the podcast, but just gathering with you makes me just want to reflect on it, because I think it might be similar to you, or I'd be curious if it is. But my journey with astrology would not have ever been possible without my yoga practice. I was interested in astrology as a kid, but it was like sun sign astrology. And I always had this certain knack at remembering people's birthdays. Like one of my hidden talents in school, I remember one time it was probably like third or fourth grade, and we had a substitute teacher, and she didn't know what to do with us for the last 20 minutes of class. So she said we would have a little hidden talent show, and we could each go up to the front of the room and like share something that no one knew that we could do. And my hidden talent was that I could name everyone's birthday in chronological order in my entire grade. And everyone was like, what? How do you know that? Because I used to study, I had a birthday book. I would study people's like personalities based off their birthday and just kind of fact check. So I've always kind of like been interested in just like human psychology and numerology and people's birthdays, but it was never as deep as astrology, like the sun sign kind of. But as far as that, I didn't learn about a moon sign until after I had been practicing yoga. And there was something about getting into my body and starting to understand that when you begin to still the body, you begin to still the mind. That opened up a portal towards connecting to the truth that we are all one, which is yoga. Yoga means union, whether that's union of all people or union of body, mind, spirit, and something about the collective energy of gathering in a classroom with a group of people and all being in sync together while being lovingly present with our body and our breath started to expand my consciousness in ways that is really unexplainable unless you are deep in a yoga practice. So yoga was like the gateway drug to my astrology in many ways. It was the stepping stone towards tarot and astrology, towards me really beginning to understand it. Because if I wasn't present with my body, there's no way I'd ever be present with my mind or present with spirit. And I'm curious about this for you too. If what is your relationship to yoga, and do you think yoga is what ultimately led you to even being able to see and appreciate the wisdom of patterns you might sense in nature?
Yeah, I do. And I think, like, first of all, yoga, the idea of pure presence, because when we're not truly present, which is inevitable in the human condition, we're like running from here to there, got so many things on our to-do list. It's hard to be present enough to enjoy the simplicity of life, to enjoy the view of the birds, or even the smell of the wind, or the colors of the flowers, all of the things in nature. Like, yoga has taught me to slow it down and to feel and sense all of these things. So it has really connected. It really does connect me to the astrology, particularly in my big Taurian world, through that, and has been a stepping stone for me as well. And your story and mine are similar, where when I was younger, as a college, maybe 19, 20 years old, I was definitely really interested. I saw my chart then and knew about my chart then, but then couldn't really connect it all. I didn't know enough. I was always quite spiritual, but I didn't know what to do with it. I think yoga gave me a path of a direction to go, a flow to go into. And through the body, we experience all the sensations and that's our interconnectedness to the world, is through the body. This body, we're here on this earth, in this body at this moment, and that's how we experience all of life. And so through the medium of the body, I definitely feel like I am able to sense into the bigger themes, which would be the cosmos.
How do you incorporate astrology into your yoga teacher trainings, and also maybe your yoga classes that you teach?
I'm just thinking about yesterday. Jupiter enters Taurus. And I was so tired yesterday. I will admit, I taught a class, went on a hike, walked the dogs, went shopping for food, and I did a small workout. I'm embarrassed, but I'm admitting it.
You just feel alive.
I did it all with so much like lethargy. I was struggling to plug through it all. And then I went to go teach my class, and I'm seeing one student with just yawning, and they're all like lying down. There must have been like 20, 25 people there, and they were all like lying down and yawning. And I just had to ask, do you guys feel tired? Who feels tired today? I'm just curious. I make them raise their hands. Because I think the collective energy is it's like a research project for me as an astrologer. And so at least half of them raised their hand. I definitely got that sense. And so I had a way to kind of segue into talking about, well, you might be feeling this transit that's very potent today of Jupiter entering Taurus. So that is one way I connect it.
Mm-hmm.
I ended a teacher training that I was facilitating with some partners on Sunday. And as sort of a treat for them, I decided to pull up all of their charts, and gave them little anecdotes about their charts, each one, and they got to leave with their chart. None of them had seen their birth chart before, so I collected all their information a few days ahead of time, and I was able to introduce them. It was like an introductory, to, hey, this is what you might consider connecting to, and here's some potentials for you. So that happened. And also at the beginning of, right before the beginning of the training was the first eclipse, and then the Aries new moon eclipse. And then we had like right when the Aries new moon happened, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the first one. And then the next, then the May 5th was the Scorpio eclipse. And so we were totally in that portal the whole time. So I started the training talking about that new moon and the eclipse, just like, here we are. Okay, we're on a journey.
So it does sound like it's a big part of your teachings. Not a big part, but like it's a vocabulary that you utilize to communicate about what people might be sensing energetically.
Yeah, and then I pull some cards with them. It's usually the first day of the training, somewhere in the mid. So it's not often during the training. I just do a couple of potent pulls, and they always seem so magical. I think the North Node in Taurus has like really, the last few years, really helped me to pull in that spiritual energy that I have in my chart into, and make it practical with the Taurus in the teachings. I try to bridge the practical and the more spiritual together.
Yeah. What an interesting time it is to have the North Node of Fate finishing up its time in Taurus while Jupiter's entering Taurus. So the last year and a half, the North Node of Fate has been in Taurus and is just wrapping up its time there. The North Node of Fate represents the eclipse axis. So we've been having eclipses during Taurus season, and then Scorpio on the other side of the wheel with the South Node of Fate in Scorpio. And it's almost like Jupiter's entering Taurus and now is giving us an opportunity to really come into some sort of understanding of the accumulation of wisdom that we have received from the North Node of Fate being in Taurus. And so if we've been really putting our focus towards Taurus over the last year and a half, it feels like Jupiter and Taurus may bring us some sort of new opportunity or new gift in that part of our chart. It's possible. Yeah. So what are you sensing with all this Taurus energy? How did you experience the North Node of Fate in Taurus over the last year and a half? This is kind of an opportunity for us to reflect on it, as the North Node's about to enter Aries in July. But also, what are you sensing as Jupiter is entering Taurus? And just as a reminder for all of us, Jupiter and the North Node of Fate will align at 2 degrees of Taurus.
I feel like I've really been along for the ride with the North Node in Taurus, because I have Venus at 28 degrees Taurus, Mercury 22, Saturn 11, and the Sun at 5. So it's in every decan. And so I feel like its potency has been hitting me up all along the way in the past year and a half. And it's kind of fate and destiny moving me in the direction that is where I am bound to go anyway. But maybe before this, I felt like I was swimming upstream, where I'm like been in the flow, really in the flow. And there's this
Fate and destiny. These are some like big concepts. That is there a difference between fate and destiny? And how do you perceive the difference between the two? I'd be curious. I interrupted your flow of what you were about to say, but I heard these words.
I almost can bridge it in a way, because sort of fate has brought me here with you right now. It almost is like it pulled you into my life in a way in the past. You were already there, because I've been following you since maybe when you possibly like 2019.
Yeah.
That's at least 2019. I'm not sure when you started the podcast, but
2017.
So we've been in in a deeper relationship in the past year, for sure. Though we met in person in 2020, which is really exciting. But fate has brought me into just the right moment where I have just the right teacher. And then my destiny is my own North Node in a way. So it's like fate pulled me that way. And then when I think about how my North Node sextiles the current North Node, so in Pisces, and it's pulled me out of the 12th house. So I have 10th house Pisces North Node. And I feel this connection where the North Node in Taurus the past couple of years has really like lent to pulling me out into my own destiny of following this spiritual path in my 10th house as something that I'm doing more out in the world, instead of always like in more closed spaces. Even my house and a lot of my own practices I do at home. So there's a lot of stuff that I do at home and away from others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's something, Jupiter and the North Node of Fate both have they both have a kind of quality of fate and destiny to them. So that's why I think it's particularly interesting that they're lining up this year.
I'm thinking like, it makes me feel into the Wheel of Fortune.
For sure. Which you're bringing this up because the Wheel of Fortune is connected to Jupiter in the tarot.
There's so much to it. And it's, I kind of feel like Jupiter might help to really sort of feel the lessons of what the North Node has brought to the collective, have brought to me personally, but now like as the master teacher. And that there will be this sort of evolution that I'm not even steering, or we're not even steering this wheel, but it's just come into like to kind of take us on further the journey of the Taurus themes. And Taurus has been actually a pretty strong theme for the past several years with Uranus, with the squares to Saturn, because it was such a potent square. Those squares happened in 2021, and there were so many lessons in society from that. And it's just like, I think Jupiter is like, it's almost the gift at the end of this cycle, because even though Uranus will be in Taurus for a couple more years, it's still like we're nearing the end of this kind of cycle, but Jupiter's here to really like increase the potential of understanding of the lessons that Taurus has brought to us within these different areas.
This is interesting for us to just kind of note, and it's really easy to remember. Jupiter and Uranus will align in the sky at 21 degrees of Taurus next year. So Jupiter only makes it up to 15 degrees of Taurus this year, and then will station retrograde. But then next year in 2024, on the first day of Taurus season, it's so weird how astrology does this. The sun
My goodness.
Yeah. April 19th, 2024, the sun enters Taurus, and Jupiter and Uranus align in the sky at 21 degrees of Taurus on that day.
Wow.
There's certain alignments like that, like Pluto will go back into Capricorn in June, but then re-enter Aquarius on the first day of Aquarius season in 2024. There's these certain cosmic alignments in 2024 of just like, kind of like, almost like little cosmic giggles to me. Like there's like are you paying attention? The sun entered Taurus and Jupiter and Uranus are aligning in the sky today. So that 21 degrees of Taurus is also like a hot point for us to be kind of just meditating on. In your chart, you have Mercury at 22 degrees of Taurus. So this is a degree from where Jupiter and Uranus are going to align. Wow. So much cosmic expansion around your ability to communicate and to think. I'm just thinking about all of the studying that you've done. I mean, we've talked about doing level 2 of the mentorship. I think of like that would be such a great use of that, but it also feels like you just coming into this even like stronger bolder power in your voice as an astrologer, as a mystic, as a teacher. And there could be like new kind of radical opportunities that maybe you weren't even thinking were going to come your way. Yes, as a teacher and as a Taurus, I mean, we can feel it when you speak, but you have a powerful voice. And we know Taurus is connected to the throat, to the voice, to the mouth, to the lips. Have you always had a relationship to the voice? As a teacher, this is like such an important part of being a teacher, is being able to speak truth boldly out into the world. What is your relationship to these Taurian parts of the body?
Well, I've had a voice in some ways I haven't. I have experienced trauma in my life as a young child and was not heard in a way that helped me to heal from it.
Yeah.
And it caused a little more harm. And so I've always been a little bit shy with my voice, even though I do teach yoga and I teach in groups and I project my voice out in that way. There was a time where I would never sing or chant in public. And now I'm just like, throw care to the wind and do all that. But through astrology, actually, it has really validated my disconnection with my voice, because I came to understand through astrology how I suppressed it, or how it was suppressed. And then I was kept it all hidden, 12th housey. And there was a time about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, that it was interesting. It was always more towards the fall. So maybe towards Scorpio. So this polar energy, where I would lose my voice, literally. I lost my voice. And then when astrology came into the picture for me more and saturated my understanding of my own mental health and my own evolution, my voice came back. I started talking more. I started using it more. I started becoming less shy in the spaces that I'd use it, even this moment right now, right here. And I was reflecting on this, and I was thinking actually recently that in the past 5 years, I haven't lost my voice, but prior to that, I had kept losing my voice at this sort of time of the year where it was all about my own deep psychology, Scorpio season timing.
Yeah.
And so, I have not always felt liberal with my voice or able to speak. And I think that's been a huge healing for me.
Yeah. I mean, feels so true to many Taurus's experiences, though. Like the throat being connected to Taurus can often be a place where Taurus has stuck energy, but it is also a power center.
I mean, it is Vishuddha chakra, which is known actually as the purification center.
Yeah. And
there's so much power in speaking your truth. And so it hasn't always been easy for me to tell people how I feel, or I think I always had that fear that I wouldn't be listened to.
Mm-hmm. And there's so much power in speaking anything into existence and then noticing how truth is revealed in that. So when I hear purification, like if you say something to someone and it's not true, like maybe we're coming from like a lower self in this moment, and we say something to someone and it's not true, we can feel that too. There's like a purification that happens. It's like, ooh, I didn't actually really mean to say that. That's not true. I feel a purification in that process too, which then realigns us in some ways with taking responsibility for the words that we say. And I do think part of Taurus's soul gifts is sitting with the truth and then speaking the truth in a way that is mindful. There's a mindfulness to Taurus, I do find. Whereas Gemini, which we're going to talk about here in a moment, because your Gemini rising and this Taurus new moon is just a few days before Gemini season. So we're starting to get the little Gemini buzz coming on, although Jupiter just entered Taurus, and we were saying we get a like, in some ways, I feel like Taurus season didn't really start until like Jupiter just entered Taurus just now. Jupiter in Aries has been lit for me. Like it's been full on nonstop Aries for me this whole Taurus season until about this week. I actually called Adriana, my friend who's a Taurus, and I was like, happy Jupiter in Taurus. And she was like, I'm so tired. I'm just like reflecting on what you were saying. Like that's kind of going around this week, I think. Maybe Jupiter in Aries kind of wore us all out a little bit. But I digress. Taurus says things once, and when they say it, they mean it, and it resounds in your body. Gemini has a lot more ideas and wants to talk and maybe talk things through. This is kind of how I feel the difference between these two signs. And you're a Gemini rising, so there's a little bit of not conflicting energy, but we get a lot more cerebral here with Gemini rising.
Although you just even said that you think of Taurus as mindfulness, which does bring me to the esoteric phrase again, right? The eyes illumine. So I do think there is a bridge between the two, though the energies are so very different that they could make good partners, because the Gemini comes up with the plethora of ideas and the Taurus can do the work to finish them.
Yeah. So what is this feeling like? We're shifting into Gemini season, and actually you have Hygeia in Gemini, which I wanted to connect in with you today. And I have, since this year, I upgraded my software to Astro Gold, thanks to you and also to a few others. Like I've been working with Heidi Rose Robbins, and that's the software that she uses as well. There's just like a few people in the community that use Astro Gold. But Astro Gold, one of the reasons why I wanted to start working with this software is because you can have Hygeia turned on in your chart, which you're always talking to me about Hygeia. Hygeia this, Hygeia that. Well, your Hygeia is in Gemini, conjunct your Chiron. And I'm like, I don't work with Hygeia. But I do now because I have Astro Gold, thanks to you. And we have Hygeia at the same exact degree in Gemini. So which is cool. Sometimes Gemini energy will do this. Gemini is like, for me, it's like pattern recognition, like repeating numbers, or like, oh, we have Hygeia at the same degree. Like we're getting out of the body now and starting to notice the way things connect. It's like connecting the dots in some way. So you have Hygeia in Gemini in the first house. And even when reading your bio, I mean, I felt the polarity to Taurus with Scorpio, just with working with youth at risk with substance abuse. That felt like Taurus understanding Scorpio. And also you're working in public health. You're working in health and wellness. Hygeia is connected to health, to hygiene, to medicine. Talk to us a little bit about Hygeia. I've just started including Hygeia in my practice this year. I usually will include one new asteroid every year just for my own purposes, but I've started to get to know this asteroid Hygeia.
Hygeia, it's the only thing that I have in the first house, which has always been interesting to me, as well as she is conjunct my ascendant. So I love connecting her with mental health, my mental health. For me, I connect the ascendant with the body. I have Mars really close in Gemini too. And it feels very much like a physical part of me, even though it's Gemini, because it's the ascendant. And then to have, when I learned that I had Hygeia there, it just immediately I felt like she was prominent in my chart.
Yeah.
Who I am and who I'm becoming. And I do feel like Hygeia, so she's like the goddess of health and hygiene. And she's related to all parts of our health, though. It's not just our physical health, it's our spiritual health and it's our psychological health. So when I look at Hygeia in Gemini, I think about how important it is that I use my body as an avenue to maintain my mental health. I feel so much better. I'm a whole different person if I practice yoga or if I get out and do a hike or when I'm using my physical body, it really helps to relax my mind. And then when I figured out that your Hygeia was related to my Hygeia, it made so much sense because we have one thing that connected me to, or you, how I connected to you before I knew you, was that your embodied health approach and you talk about yoga and do the meditations. Like it was just like, it was like a revelation when I first heard your podcast, because I had listened to a bunch of other ones that I didn't necessarily fully resonate with, but I was thirsty for information and I was just, okay, this is it. This is, it just felt so connected. So I'm not surprised because here you are bringing information that is like wellness for me. So that connection happened. And I think of the ascendant, it's interesting where people have Hygeia in their charts. So I started following that. Like where's Hygeia? And Hygeia in your chart is near your IC.
She's in my fourth house.
Yeah. So it's like, in that, sometimes that's like healing sort of the healing the root, healing the family kind of history.
Yeah.
Want to say there's yeah, I've seen Hygeia in somebody's chart where it was in the 6th house and they were in school to be a doctor. I've seen Hygeia on people's midheaven, and that has a sort of a different connotation where like that is something that's really obvious out in the world that we see, like somebody who is a health coach or it's just I've seen so much interesting theming around Hygeia that's why I started to follow her a lot. And even through the pandemic, I mean, there was points in the pandemic where she was like nothing else near her, and she was like holding she was just holding the whole chart on the opposite side with all the planets on and like the umbrella handle on. And I just remember seeing her being in this role during the pandemic that seemed so, I mean, the pandemic was largely about hygiene. We learned to wash our hands for 20 seconds, for example. So it really brought this up for me to follow her. And then looking at her in people's charts, I know it's so hard when we do our chart readings. We can't read everything and all the asteroids, but I got very lucky because my teacher was super into the asteroids, and she talked to me about asteroids the first time she read my chart. It was like just as important as everything else. So I just learned the asteroids just as intensely as everything else.
Yeah.
So watching Hygeia has been really interesting to me.
I gave a reading to someone yesterday that had Hygeia in the 4th house. And she was like, oh, my parents were both doctors. 4th house being connected to home and family. So, there's still like, I'm still like picking up how to work with Hygeia and how she works in all of the different houses. And it's through the wisdom that I gained through experience of working with people and just hearing, what does it bring up for you that this asteroid of health and healing and wellness and even medicine. I mean, the glyph for Hygeia, right? It's the staff with the 2 serpents intertwined up the staff, which is a medical symbol. And I was walking Biji just before getting on the call with you, which I usually do before I sit to record something, just to make sure he's good while I'm recording. And for the first time, I saw on the back of a car or a truck in my neighborhood, the Hygeia symbol.
Wow.
And then it said, Yeah, and then it said RN, registered nurse. But it like I was like, there's Hygeia. So you'll see
Yeah.
it around, and there's a mural in my neighborhood that has the Hygeia symbol. You usually see it like on the sides of medical buildings,
Yeah.
but it is interesting. I'd never seen it as a bumper sticker on someone's car until just before we were about to gather. And I knew I wanted to talk to you about Hygeia today because, well, Hygeia's conjuncture midheaven right now in the current transit. So you have an Aquarius midheaven, and Hygeia is at the 21st degree of Aquarius right now, which is trine your natal Hygeia in Gemini, the other air sign. So, you as a Gemini rising with Hygeia rising, I would say that you are waking up to your own healership,
It's
like
funny.
whether that's like, you as a yoga teacher, it's almost like the own healing work that you do on yourself. First house is so much a part of just what it is that you're offering. That's how I would connect with it. Yeah.
And I
Well,
think Hygeia, she has like a cup. She's holding a cup. And then that's also the pharmacy symbol. She's a snake. So sometimes she's depicted in this way, as well as the symbol being there for healthcare. And the snake is about deep transformation. They shed their skin. I think I'm supposed to deeply transform in this life. Living in the 12th house and having that in the first house feels pretty potent to me. And I think Hygeia's just had a lot to teach me. And I think that's really initially what brought me to her. And it's kind of curious. And I remember when Pluto entered Aquarius a couple months ago, I think I messaged you and said, oh, Hygeia's just holding Pluto's hand right into Aquarius, because Pluto at 0 degrees and then Hygeia was at like 5 or 6. And it was just like, she was the only thing next to Pluto at that time.
Yeah.
And it just felt like we may be transforming, and it might be slow. Pluto always makes me feel like slow, but it might be slow, but we are transforming in a way that hopefully will be healthful and healing for society.
It did feel in many ways, I don't know if promising is the right word, but just seeing Hygeia with Pluto as they were entering together, it did feel like whatever collective transformations are going to take place with Pluto and Aquarius is somehow going to be connected to our overall health and well-being. And that felt in some ways promising, having just moved through this threshold of a global pandemic. Like almost like new technologies might emerge to bring greater healing to the collective. That's the high vision of it. But yeah, Pluto's so slow moving. It's a slow transformation, and it's so collective, being Pluto as a transpersonal planet and also in the sign of Aquarius. So I'm very curious, like even someone who was born, over the last few months, they'll have both Pluto and Hygeia together in Aquarius in their chart. Hygeia makes it up to 24 degrees of Aquarius this year, and then stations retrograde and heads back to, where does Hygeia make it back to? Hygeia makes it back to 11 degrees of Aquarius by October. So stations back, and then we'll go direct again. So is in Aquarius all year, Hygeia in Aquarius. So whatever placements you have in Aquarius, if you're listening to this and it's resonating with you, your Aquarian energy is likely going through some sort of awakening, I would say, for Aquarius, but also the relationship that Aquarius has to astrology. And how is astrology here to serve our mental health, our spiritual health, our physical health? I mean, both of us do this in our practices. I liked hearing your reflection of just saying, oh, you listened to my podcast and you're like, oh, this is how I want to work with astrology. I had listened to so many astrology podcasts, and I still do, but I find 9 times out of 10 after listening to astrology podcast, I'm more anxious and stressed out than I was going into it. And so a big part of my intention in creating an offering and a podcast offering was to hopefully make people not feel more anxious after they listen to the podcast. So that's why I've brought so much awareness to embodied health.
I think that's exactly what drew me to you. Like I felt, and as a Gemini rising and Gemini Hygeia, I deal with anxiety. I wrestle with it. And your podcast always made me feel so calm. I couldn't wait till the next one will come out. Like I knew as soon as you made that offering for the Fool's Journey, I'm on that journey. There's no way I'm not on that journey. And yeah, and my hope too, you were talking about the entering of Pluto in Aquarius and the hopeful shifts we might have. It kind of feels like society needs to look at all these different aspects, the body, mind, and the spirit, in terms of health, mental health, and what's happening in the world today, and with what's happening with people and all sorts of things, gun control, like everything. And it's really linked together. So it gives me a feeling that there's potential. I always love to think of astrology like, what's the potential here?
Yeah.
Instead of like the predictive way that sometimes it's worked with. And
yeah, I think there's a time and a place for all of that. Like predictive astrologers are also, I learned so much about even just what's going on in the world from predictive astrologers and mundane astrologers, because they're talking about world news. And it's actually a way for me to stay tapped in to what's happening in the here and now. And I try to incorporate that some in my work. I think that some of my work as an Aquarius is to be both cosmic and also humanitarian, to know what's going on in society. And I think there's a balance there for sure.
And I'm bringing it up because I'm bringing up the current state of the world and how this potential is there. I like to work with all of this. Could be something that could be emergent.
For sure. If you're interested in learning more about Hygeia, this could be a great place for you to look to understand the Pluto and Aquarius transit. It's like, okay, Pluto and Hygeia both were in Aquarius right when Pluto entered Aquarius. And where's Hygeia in your own birth chart? How are you here to help facilitate this embodiment of mental, spiritual, physical health, as this is the invitation over the next 20 years with Pluto and Aquarius? If we look at the ingress chart, it is like the birth chart of that transit. And so there's Hygeia's there. So we're all being asked to step up into our healership potential. And so I'd be curious for everyone listening to learn where Hygeia is in your chart. And if you don't know where Hygeia is, AstroGold is a great resource tool for looking at asteroids. I'm sure there's a Hygeia calculator if you just type it in a search engine, or you could book a reading with either Niki, Sue, or myself, and we could help you understand Hygeia. And we've talked about releasing a workshop too on Hygeia. So maybe that will be in the works at some point too. What do you think of some of what I'm sharing?
I think that this could be, I love that Hygeia brings up our healing.
Yeah.
And again, I go back to the snake and it's just this transformation process. And so is Pluto. I mean, Pluto is deep, deep transformation. And so it's kind of making me feel into this opportunity that we all have to really take a deep look into that and how we can think in terms of longevity for our own healing. And that understanding, like for me, knowing that my Hygeia is in the first house, it's like, okay, I'm becoming this. I'm embracing this. I'm learning more about this. It feels fresher to me in this lifetime, in my own healing. And when Hygeia goes direct, is that right? At 11 degrees Aquarius? That's right on my part of fortune. So I'm like, fate has, and in the top of my chart again. So it's like fate has sort of brought her to me and brought her teachings. And yeah, it just makes me more inspired to evolve in that kind of soul evolutionary quality.
And I think you as a Hygeia rising, you are, become a Hygeia expert. Like it's part of your chart. And I think whatever is rising at the time of our birth is something that we master in our chart for sure. Let's pull a card to close out our time together. We could just talk all day, but it's nice to keep it, contained. And so the deck that I'm using for this is a deck that recently came out. It's by a student of mine, Sarah Jane Chapman, who just released a tarot deck called Be With Your Body Tarot. And it is a somatic based tarot deck that connects you to your body. So you can start to maybe sense a pattern of people who work with me. It's not all people interested in the body, but a lot of times people I'm working with are interested in building a bridge between body, mind, and spirit. So this is a cool new deck, and in honor of everything that we've talked about today, Hygeia, the Taurus New Moon, Jupiter entering Taurus, Be With Your Body Tarot feels like a good tarot deck to use. And I'm giving away this tarot deck to someone on my Instagram. I had people, if they commented 3 emojis and reshared the post, then I put their name in a hat to be eligible to win. So you can also follow me on Instagram if you're interested in tarot giveaways. I think with Jupiter and Taurus, I'm going to be a little bit more generous with things like that. I might be giving tarot decks away this year. So follow me on Instagram. You can find Niki Sue on Instagram as well. I'll put links in the show notes to your website and all of that good stuff. It's making me think of Queen of Taurus. Cher was named Queen of Taurus in 2018. And I always just think it's funny that her name is a play on words with sharing, Taurus is a very generous sign. And I think Jupiter and Taurus, if you have resources, then share it with other people. When we hoard, maybe this is a shadow of Taurus, hoarding, keeping things secure and protected. But Taurus learns to not be in lack mentality and to let it flow. So what is our card? What is our message here to help us integrate everything that we've learned today? Oh my goddess. This is a card that we are connected through because I gifted it to you at the end of the Fool's Journey. We got the Sun card.
That's so good.
Well, there is a beautiful guidebook that comes with Be With Your Body Tarot, which I also hope you'll check out. This is our message. A person looks at large sunflowers. That's the description of the card. Astrology, sun, the self, light, plant, sunflower. Connected to the Magician and the Wheel of Fortune, the evolution of these 3 cards is that the Magician, number 1, reminds you the power is within you. The Wheel of Fortune, number 10, which adds up to 1, reminds you that luck is always changing. And the Sun, number 19, which adds up to 10, which adds up to 1, is the lovely ending that things will work out. Joy, body connection. The sun is shining on you, so feel that warmth on your skin. This card is about abundance, joy, and creation. Feel spaciousness in and around your body. You have worked hard to connect with your body as they are, so enjoy the feeling of freedom. Affirmation. I feel the warmth in my system and trust I am just where I should be.
Wow, that's like, when I think of the sun in Taurus right now and the North Node on conjunct my sun and just being in the right place at the right time, the North Node pulling you there, just like cannot really believe that you pulled that card just now, as well as it's a pretty big component of the new moon.
Sure, sun and moon align. And it's bringing our focus back to this sun point in many ways. In a very practical Taurian way, this past week is the first week in Portland where there's not been a cloud in the sky all week, and it's been super sunny. And I've just been, literally, I walked barefoot today on the earth, which you can't really do in Portland for a big chunk of the year because you can, it's just really muddy and wet everywhere you walk. So you usually don't. But there's been enough sun this week that the earth is dry. It's starting to dry. And so it's making me think, it's connecting me to nature when I look at this sun card and actually going out and just enjoying the sun. It's also making me think of, we started our conversation kind of talking about playfulness, and you're inside of your kid's room and they actually put a bull out, like a figurine of a bull. And I found that interesting too, especially Are they following astrology? What is their relationship to astrology? As a mother, is this something that you talk to your kids about? It's making me think of kids and inner child healing, which I've done a lot of. I want you to answer those questions, but I also want to share a little bit of inner child healing that I've done, which I did last Taurus season, which is really interesting. And I wonder if this is connected to the third eye center and Taurus just like seeing things, having that like focal point, the drishti, we might call it in yoga. But writing affirmations out and being able to see them. I did this last Taurus season and I did it again this Taurus season. This year it's a little different and it is involving the light. So I had ordered some stained glass window decals to put on my windows in my bathroom so that people can't see me when I'm taking a shower, that sort of thing. But it was too opaque. It didn't let enough light in. So I didn't use it for that. And I missed the return date, probably because Mercury was retrograde, whatever, it's direct now. So I couldn't return that stained glass window cover. So what I decided to do was to cut out letters. And so now I've create these window messages at a few of the windows in my apartment on some of the mirrors with affirmations. And so the one I have in my bedroom is I'm doing a 9-month somatic embodiment training right now called Body Temple. And the affirmation we worked with as a group is, we are worthy of a love that heals, which I think is my Taurus New Moon affirmation for us. We are worthy of a love that heals. And so I've written that on my window with this stained glass window stickers. And it felt like inner child healing. There was something in it. I was like, this is so like playful and cute. And like, if I had like a 5-year-old, something I might do with my 5-year-old, but I'm doing it with myself, and the sunlight shines through it. I'm thinking of the sun card, the connection to the inner child. I'm thinking of the sunlight on the sun card and how it's shining through this message, and how that also keeps me connected to my purpose, to my truth, to my sun, to my energy, to my radiance. So there's something like really sweet and almost innocent and playful about Taurus that's wanting to come through too.
I love that. You made like the temple has stained glass windows. And then you made it super playful though. Kind of making me think of like the 5 of Pentacles, where like maybe as a child you weren't supported in that way, that your needs were met. And then so
you're bringing up the 5 of Pentacles because in the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith, it's to maybe like houseless individuals outside of a temple with stained glass windows. And in the stained glass windows are the 5 Pentacles. Yeah, is that why you're bringing up 5 Pentacles?
Yeah. It's totally like, it connects even to my sun because it's the 5-degree Taurus, it's
number 5
spiritual, like it's just that. Yeah, sometimes there's this really deep wound, and then I love how you've taken this playful approach to, not that was part of it intentionally at first, because you got it to use to block the view of the shower, but then you took it into this whole playful realm that actually is, you're linking it to your somatic healing. I love that. That's just like, I really like that.
One of the, so on my mirror in my kitchen, I put another phrase, and you actually used one of the words, which is vortex. You're talking about where you live being a vortex. And this is what the teacher shared. The teacher is my friend, Adriana Rizzolo, who's a Taurus. I'm taking her training this year because I want to get to know her work more. And I just want to connect more to my body. But she said this quote, I don't even know if like, she would even write it in a book or anything, but it just stuck with me and I wrote it down in my journal, and then now it's up on my mirror. But it was get obsessed with your healing vortex. And now it's like up in big letters on my mirror in my kitchen in this like stained glass print. It's fun. But there was something in that just like stuck with me.
Make me feel into you walking barefoot today. And like you've shared with me that the earth and being connected to the earth is really important to you.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think sometimes as an Aquarius, with a Virgo moon, that Earth moon, but that fixed quality of Aquarius, I really relate to Taurus a lot. Just because I have fixed energy and also Earth energy. But I don't have any Taurus in my chart. I do have a Taurus IC, which you pointed out my heart print. I have my bed behind me has hearts on it. Like the duvet cover. My home feels very Taurian, my IC. It's important for me to feel safe and secure in my home. So yeah, the Sun card showing up for us. I like that Sarah Jane was connecting it to 1, the Magician, 10, the Wheel of Fortune. Both those cards came up during our time together today.
I know. It's amazing.
And the Sun is also in a triad family with the column that it creates is the Hierophant, number 5, which is Taurus's card. There's 5 again, 5 of Pentacles. We can connect to the Hierophant too. And how do belief systems play into our worth? So like if you grew up in a very religious family that doesn't accept your worldview, you might have some shame that you're working through. And Taurus can also bring up these kind of deeper seeds of shame that we are working with. And I think of that with the 5 of Pentacles, just learning your own belief systems and values. So it's bringing that up. And then also in that triad family, it's the Hierophant, the Hanged One, and then the Sun.
It's all connecting.
Yeah. So the Hanged One is connected to Neptune, and Neptune is at the 27th degree of Pisces on this new moon.
Which is conjunct my Juno. So it's no wonder we're doing this amazing spiritual partnership right now.
You know where Juno currently is in the current transit. So you have Juno and Pisces at the 27th degree, but Juno is conjunct your ascendant in Gemini right now. Yeah. So yeah, there's an echoing of that.
Siblings,
cosmic cousins. So if someone wanted to get to know more about you, where might they find you?
They could find me at Niki Sue Mueller at gmail.com is one way. I have a website, nikisuyoga.com, which also has my astrology openings or offerings, I should say, as well as Niki Sue 108. And this is my Instagram. They could find me in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, perhaps leading a teacher training that they too could join into.
Maybe we'll do a retreat in Wyoming sometime. We've talked about doing a astrology yoga retreat. 108, we're going to end with this number. You used 108 in one of your things that you just said. Tell us a little bit about 108. What is 108?
108 is this is an auspicious number that you find in different traditions in the East. And I've always been really drawn to it. There are the mala that people use. I'm wearing one right now, actually, my moonstone. So I could think very deeply into our work today together. But so I have so many of these malas. They're made up of 108 beads, and the tradition is to kind of feel them and meditate on them. Several of the deities are associated with this. For example, Saraswati, I believe she holds a mala in her hand. So it's a really deep spiritual, has a very deep spiritual flavor to it.
You know who else holds one?
Who else?
The Queen of Swords.
Oh, really?
Yup.
That.
Smith around her. She has one hand holding a sword and the other hand is kind of like pointing out. She's got it around her wrist.
So good.
9 planets, 12 zodiac signs. 9 times 12 is 108. I like that because it kind of builds a bridge between yoga as a spiritual practice and astrology a little bit. And if you take a breath for each bead, it comes out to about 21, 22 minutes for me. I'm really sitting with each bead. And so I use the necklace as a way to just not have to use technology and a timer when meditating. Some days maybe it'll take me 10 minutes, other days maybe it'll take me 30, but a breath for each bead.
It's interesting too, because I always think of malas I've gifted malas to people over time. And it's usually a mala that I've had and used and spent time with. And it always feels like it's for some kind of healing or something they've been going through.
You gifted me one.
I know.
Yeah, it's a rainbow one. It's like all the different colors of the chakras.
It's like an energy you can wear and really receive the gift of healing from.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us today on Cosmic Cousins. Happy Taurus New Moon to you and Jupiter entering Taurus.
Thank you.
Okay, Cosmic Cousins, thank you as always for tuning into the podcast. Without you, this podcast would not be possible. Again, you could rate, leave some reviews, become a Patreon supporter, book a reading with me, or sign up for mentorship. That's how you can support the production of this show. It's an honor as always to be here with you. I'm wishing for you an easeful, a peaceful, an illuminating Taurus New Moon. Reminder as we close out, our phrases for this Taurus New Moon: I ground, I receive, I stabilize. Our questions for reflection: what do you truly value? What brings you a sense of security, stability, and belonging? How might you cultivate a deeper sense of worth within yourself? Our affirmation: we are worthy of a love that heals. And also, just reminding you, this is a very cosmic Taurus New Moon. And our cosmic Earth question is, how might you take a step back from the chaos of the world and find peace in this present moment? I'm wishing you all well. I'll see you next time for the Sagittarius full moon. And that'll be in 2 weeks if you're listening to this live. It's almost Gemini season. The sun enters Gemini May 21st, Sunday, May 21st, and the Sagittarius full moon is on Saturday, June 3rd. Okay, Cosmic Cousins, I'll see you next time. Take sweet care, and remember, deep breaths.